came back with a bang. Window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when I'm get to the bag. Ayy, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast. Ayy, ayy, let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss. Ayy.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are not live because this is one of those pre-recorded episodes that we drop every once in a while because all my guests have day jobs, you guys, and sometimes we can't all jump on and coordinate at the exact same time there at 8:30 a.m. Pacific. So we do some of these afternoon recordings, you guys, to kind of accommodate that, but that doesn't change the message, you guys. As always, this is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. I always love talking to the people who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can most importantly take all of this information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. And today's guest is all of that and then some, you guys. And he's also a podcaster, and he's got a sick YouTube channel and everything. And I'm always looking forward to talk to individuals like that. So I have Mr. Sage Outcast on the show today. Sage, thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
No, thanks for having me on, bro. I'm excited to be on.
No, dude, same here. And I love the background that you got going on there. And I love how you got the mic equalizer going on the bottom every time somebody talks. It's a pretty sick graphic there.
Yeah, I do a lot with that. I do a lot with my YouTube channel with that. So when I do the YouTube channel, I want to make sure I'm talking. That actually helps me because I take a lot of callers. So before the caller comes on, I mute everything. And then when I make sure that I unmute them when I after I check their volume and to make sure they don't background noise, and then the caller comes on. So it actually helps me out too, also to make sure I forget to unmute myself.
So what made you jump in and kind of like start a YouTube and then kind of like walk us through that? What was the beginning of the content creation journey?
So the content creation was basically the start of COVID. So I've been in logistics over 22 years, basically everything from owner operator, CDL holder, and carrier, and freight broker, freight brokerage, now with SPI. And there was a lot of misunderstanding in regards to how freight was working, and a lot of carriers were kind of going out of business. And I knew that same thing. In 2008, I was a carrier. In that recession, I had to make a choice. I was dead broke. I had no money. We were 3 months behind on everything we owned. We were basically just getting by in ramen noodles. And I basically had to make a decision with my truck back then that either I continue to drive and figure this out, or I move into the freight brokerage sales portion and doing that. At the time, I was a Landstar. Well, my wife was a Landstar agent. I was a Landstar driver. And I made the decision to go with the agency and let the truck go. So I was in that same situation where people were with COVID when they were losing their trucks and they weren't getting freight and after it started to taper off. So I started to do the YouTube channel to say, let me explain supply and demand. Let me explain what's going on behind the curtain of a freight broker, and explain how you can, get better relationships with freight brokers and how you can get better freight. Because I saw a lot of drivers that were hurting when it started to taper off, and I was there, man. I lived that life, right? I knew that feeling. So I started my YouTube channel doing that, explaining, what was happening at the ports and all that. Just to kind of benefit drivers and say, look, if you want to grow your trucking company, this is how a brokerage works. This is what you should be doing with your carrier. Like I said, because I was there, I felt that I lost my truck. You know what I mean?
And dude, but that to me though, Sage, that is the content that needs to be out there is, if there's one thing that I think frustrates me the most about a lot of, podcasts that I see and people on social media across the board is they're just showing their highlight reel. They're making it seem like it's the easiest thing ever to start a business or even start as a freight agent. And all of a sudden you're a millionaire because you're out on your own and you should walk away from this salary and do all of these things. And yes, a lot of that is very possible, but like it is very challenging to get your business off the ground and then grow it. And especially if you don't have that consistent business, right? Because I think like that's one thing that it's like, there's some individuals out there who, and again, I'm not here to knock anybody's hustle at all, but like maybe they've been working with the same customers for 8-10 years. And then they're like, hey, I'm going to go out on my own and do my own thing now. Their journey is going to be vastly different than the majority of people who don't have a real book of business. And then they're going to try and go out. They don't have any money saved up. They might not have 6 months of living expenses set aside. And then they quit too soon because, things happen, right? Like bills are due or, there's a major catastrophic event that happens like COVID or the financial crisis in 2008, like things are going to happen, right? So it's like, I feel like a lot of people need to just be very aware of what they're getting themselves into because, hey, as somebody who's been self-employed for 5 years now, I am a massive supporter of entrepreneurship and going out and doing it as long as you thoroughly understand what you're getting yourself into. So it's like to kind of jump to what your show and your podcast is about and what I'm building and continuing to work on here is just delivering the reality of what you're going to face out there. So you just have a better understanding of what you're going through, because again, man, that's what people, they want to resonate with that because I mean, I'd love to get your thoughts on how many times, man, and especially go back to 2008 there. Did you think you were the only driver who was going through that at that time? How isolated did you feel at times?
Well, for me, it was more the anger aspect, right? So I obviously I knew other people because I saw other drivers that are out there, and like, I'm about to get the truck. So there was within at that time, like I said, I was driving for Landstar. So I watched other drivers fall off, right? And it's like you start to say, okay, like I said, 22 years I've been on, my own business. I haven't received like a W-2 employee for 22 years. So you don't know what you're going to do. You don't know where you're going to go. You don't know what the next step is. And what I did back in 2008 is I said, okay, I'm making the decision to go with the agency route. And I was with Landstar at that point. Where do I go from here? How do I do this? Yes. I have to learn absolutely everything I can possibly learn as fast as I possibly can. And that's when I said, okay, now I'm going to niche. And I'm going to niche and I'm going to focus on that niche. And for me, that niche was over-dimensional freight.
Yep.
I went from open deck to over-dimensional freight, and I literally talked to drivers who moved over-dimensional freight for hours. I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd leave at 11 o'clock at night. I'd be moving freight, talking to drivers, learning everything from wheel spacings to trailers. I wanted to know, axle spacings, the different weights in different states and what you can get, what's the maximum height, deck heights, adjustable ride heights, different. I needed to know absolutely everything to be able to be better than the guy next to me. For me to be better than even you, I needed to know more than you. I needed to know 10% more than you to basically be able to be better than everyone else. And I drove for that. I drove for the complete knowledge of the industry and the niche I wanted to roll in.
Do you think that that's lacking out there, that it's almost like, well, hey, I started my business, I should just be entitled to results? Because dude, like not everybody has that mentality where it's like that, whatever it takes. And do you think that it has a lot to do with, like you said, man, you were 3 months behind on everything. You were broke, you were eating ramen. Like there's a different hustle at that point when you're like, if I don't do this, I lose literally everything and I'm homeless and hungry.
Yeah. And the difference is I've been married to my wife for 22 years. We lived together for 20 years, 24/7, 365. That's how we live. When the girl of your dreams basically comes to you and says, crying, saying, how are we going to eat? There's nothing more that will drive you more than that. When that faith is lost in that look, you can just feel that look and you can't answer it. Besides, I'll figure it out. That's when that's the drive that pushes you beyond the limit, right? So at that point, I think you're right. That drive is gone, because when a driver comes in and they say, hey, I'm a truck driver and now I started a business and now I'm going to run my own business, and they still maintain the knowledge of a truck driver, you're still just a truck driver. You haven't learned business, you haven't learned supply and demand, you haven't learned operations, you haven't learned logistics, you haven't pushed yourself to create a logistics business. You're just another truck driver just doing a truck driving job if you're not out there pushing it. And so that's why when I left and I did the drive, I knew that that's what's going to drive you to be successful in this industry. Right now it's technology and it's knowledge. And if you can't figure that out, you will be left behind. You have to be smarter than the other guy. You have to understand supply and demand better than the other guy. You have to know your equipment. You have to know your business. You have to know your numbers. You have to, and I say this to drivers all the time, right? Now, my podcast, I do more political stuff, but I have another channel called FreightX also that I do. But I'll talk to a driver and I'll say, hey, how long you been in business? 6 years. Okay. In 6 years, who's your head of maintenance? Well, I am. Who's your operations manager? Well, that would be me. Who's your sales and marketing team? Well, that would be me. Mm-hmm. How many direct customers have you brought on in 6 years? Or direct brokers that work? Well, none. Well, then you're fired. Yeah. Who would keep a sales manager and a marketing team that brings in no customers in 6 years? No one.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hit them when I ask these questions that, oh my God, I need all these things. And I'm like, well, McDonald's has a sales and marketing team. What makes you think you don't need one?
Yeah. I look at it, like these are a lot of lessons that you kind of learn along the way, right? Like when you're, so like a lot of individuals, when you're working for somebody else, maybe you're a driver for a large carrier or just a carrier in general. And, or you're a broker and you're starting out and you're working for a large organization that has compliance. They have an insurance department, a credit department. They have all of that stuff. You don't actually understand the business yet, right? Like, because you're in your role, whether you're just driving and that's your responsibility. You got a dispatcher who's, if you're a company driver who's giving you your pickup and delivery information and telling you where to go and how to act. Same thing as a broker, right? Like there's a lot of brokers that I know, man, that like acquired a book of business through attrition. They never actually sold anything. Yeah. So they think like freight just miraculously pops up on the board. And I'm like, yeah, man, it's like when you got to fight from day one, $1, and when you're out on your own, like, man, you got to learn anything and everything. Like, dude, I learned how to podcast through YouTube. I watched YouTube for like 40 hours. No joke, man, 40 hours to figure out how do I edit? What is sound? What is lighting? I did all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then that set me up for a ton of success of like when I went out on my own as a broker, again, my agency is through SPI as well. Like I had no customers, man. I had nothing. I had $0 of guaranteed revenue coming my way because I am an absolute glutton for punishment, man. I love starting from scratch and building out from there. But I was like, dude, I got to go after and I got to work 10 times harder than anybody else. But I also had a better understanding of the industry than most people because I had worked for a large organization and then I'd worked for a startup broker in between then and like going out on my own. So like, I know what day one dollar one looks like from that perspective and building that out and like actually understanding that at the end of the day, man, you got to work 10 times harder than you think. But like ultimately now fast forward 5 years in of being self-employed, I know my numbers down to the penny. If anybody pulled my P&L right now and they said, hey, what is your, whatchamacallit, your AT&T bill every single month, I'm going to tell you down to the penny what I spent because I know every dollar that I spend out there. I have everything managed. And it is, man, because it's a numbers game at the end of the day. And the fiscally responsible individuals out there are going to survive no matter what's going on. But like the amount of drivers that I know and the trucking companies that I know that don't have what you're talking about there, man, they don't have direct customers. They don't even have consistent brokers that they're working with. They all want it, but it's like, okay, well, if you want that direct relationship with the customer, you gotta be willing to do what other people aren't willing to do more times than not. And that same thing with drivers, or you can even throw brokers in there too, man. Most people, if they've never built something from scratch, they do not actually understand or appreciate somebody's business when it just kind of gets fed to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's where, like I said, for me, I had my own brokerage. I was not an agent, and I was my own brokerage for 17 years. I
Yeah.
left Landstar, and Landstar kind of did me wrong. I left Landstar, opened up my own brokerage, started, grabbing customers and doing the overdimensional freight and specializing in that and reaching out to that. And for me, the biggest thing I did to get into those customers was I knew overdimensional freight. I knew the trucks. I could talk truck. I knew how to explain it. I knew what trailer we needed. I knew what the best trailer was. Should I use a low pro step deck? Should I use a double drop? Should I use a stretch? Should I use this? Like maximizing the equipment. Send me your quotes. And then I ended up specializing in like fiberglass tanks and steel tanks and pressure vessels. And then they would send me a bunch of tanks, and then I'd be like, okay, we have to put this tank with this tank with this tank. This will all fit on a step deck. Next. And I started maximizing that. And that was a big deal. I opened up a carrier, and I had specialty trailers built called perimeter frames. And they're like a basket trailer, and they can carry something that's round at 6 inches. And I had that made because I had to do what my customer needed. I had to bring value to my customer more than somebody else to maintain that. And that's basically what I did. So, and then what happened was my freight slowed down, and I move project freight. So I might move 70 loads a year. Right.
Yeah.
I might move something that's, 20 foot tall, 20 foot wide, and I move that type stuff. So it's not like I just punch out a bunch of loads. My loads take a lot of time. So when we move them, and it's a big process, and I do a big part of that. So I ended up getting slow, and I'm like, you know what? I'm slow enough that I could probably find another job to do or whatever, because even trying to seek out customers at right now is difficult because nobody's looking for new logistical people because it's slow. And this is something, logistically we understand. So a buddy of mine reached out to me. He says, hey, are you willing to pass? Do you think you could pass your insurance test to sell insurance? It's called, PC, which ends up being, auto, truck, and I'm like, I don't know. I haven't been in school for like forever. I mean, I'm 49, he's like, well, take a look at the test. So I studied for the test for 2 weeks. And I passed. I passed the test to be insurance and to be able to know, for truck insurance. So to me, that was, now I've been a carrier, a broker. I still have my CDL. I've been a broker. So then what happened was, Rob, another SPI agent, is a friend of mine. And we talked all the time, and the stuff that he would show me, allegedly, I was like, that's, if I was going to work for any company, that's the one I'd go to.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, I'm ex-military. Some of the upper management is ex-military, and I'm like, it's set up it's set up real well. So I told him, I'm like, well, give me an introduction. I'll do the rest. So we did. And I reached out and I kind of explained the business I run and the company I work with and stuff like that. And I'm not consistently, my book of business is different than others. I have big booms and then I have nothing for a month.
Yeah.
And I explained that to them, and they said, yeah, we'll work with you on that. And they gave me an opportunity to do some more with it. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I did that because I'm looking at this now and I'm saying, look, to come in and run my own brokerage and be able to maybe bring agents on and get stuff like that, you almost can't do what I did 17 years ago, right? I mean, I came in and built my own brokerage and ran it all by myself and had a couple of people. And I did that at starting out with spreadsheets and PDFs, no TMS.
Yeah. And that's a good point, Sage, right there is it's like, that was a thing that we thought of too, when, I was like, hey man, I want to get back in. And I'm like, what do I do? And I'm like, act like, because like ultimately what led me to decide to like go the agent route right away, as opposed to, because like at the time I was like, maybe we go out and we find investors and we buy a brokerage outright. We'll do something. We're exploring any and all options. And, we were at the process of buying our home. And my wife looked at me and she's like, babe, I literally support you no matter what. But if this costs us buying a house, we're going to have a problem. And I'm like, okay, well, all right. I'm not going to go out there and I'm not going to put anything out there on my personal credit. And then, so that's when I called him up and I was like, I talked to Mike and I was like, hey man, I got nothing from like a customer's perspective. It's going to be complete cold. And he's like, Cool, man. We want you. So like, and that was the start. And that to me, though, Sage, was like, because I ran the numbers on everything, the technology alone that you need to operate as a broker today, insurance, because like I know, yes, by law, you technically don't need insurance as a broker, but I will tell you this right now, if you want to move freight for any customer of substance, you need insurance, no matter what is out.
Contingent insurance. We carry my contingent insurance for the amount for what I had to carry was $28,000. I had to carry a $28,000 insurance. Now I sell insurance to truck drivers now, so I realize what they pay too, and I do a lot of quotes, and I walk truck drivers through that to make sure they understand what all these coverages are. Every coverage you have, I matched. Well, I didn't do uninsured, but I carried, $5 million in auto liability, and I had to carry $250,000 in cargo.
Yeah,
it cost me $28,000 as contingent, as a contingent policy.
And, so it's like, and if you're adding up all of those numbers, like you got to see like how much freight do you actually have to move just to break even, right? Like that's not even saying paying your mortgage or feeding your family or anything like that, right? So it's like from a financial standpoint, I look at it is like, dude, they are just straight up my business partners at the end of the day. Like they are capital investors inside of my organization. They supply literally like the fact that I have the tools at my disposal being an agent through SPI. And I'm not even talking the tech stack alone. I'm talking the ability through insurance, credit, all of that stuff. I get to focus on what is most important in building your business. And that is gaining customers and building revenue and then building your war chest up so you can sustain down months or down weeks or whatever that looks like. And you don't have to wonder, how am I going to pay my bills? Right. So it's like, for me, just the support system alone is worth every penny that we have there. And then on top of it, we get some pretty sick technology to play with where I know that there is no customer that I can onboard while I'm with SPI that I am going to say, can I afford to move their freight? And I mean, like they have EDI, or we got to go from 100,000 in cargo to $500,000 in cargo. Can I afford that? I don't have to actually ask myself that question in the most crucial stage of building a business. And that is the beginning of it to get that snowball rolling, man. It takes so much money. And like, I feel so fortunate to be in the position that we're in right now, and especially to be able to grow in these because we started January of 2023 was like our go live for all of this, to be able to have that and to grow year over year. It's because of the partnership that we have with SPI, where we don't have to like look at how are we going to pay our bills, because like if we want this new piece of technology or something like that, right? Because like those are very real conversations that I had with myself when I was starting my the media stuff that I do, man. I'm like, people can see the setup now, right? They see the cool camera, the mic, the lighting, all of that shit. This wasn't always that way, man. I mean, dude, when I first, I didn't even know, like my audio interface is like almost $1,000. You know how much $1,000 was to me when I had first started, man? I barely had any money. So it's like, to not have to make those decisions to go out and just fully invest, man, it's a breath of fresh air, and it's almost like it helps me sleep at night from that perspective.
Yeah, and for me, it was like I said, and I know it sounds like, oh, it's commercial. It's not. But what I did, I came from owning my own brokerage to basically saying, come to SPI, and a lot of people would look at it, oh, you failed, right? My thing failed. But what I looked at when I was looking at, okay, do I go and reinvest and redo my bond and redo my insurance and stuff like that, or at 50 or 49, or do I make a change and do I pivot? And do I do the insurance thing and also do the SPI thing? And the big thing that, I'll be honest, the big thing that sold me with SPI was the fact that they're like, I'm ex-Coast Guard, right? I did search and rescue. I was on a 47. I was an engineer. We go out, boom, right? Coxswain gets us there. I'm the one jumping on the other boat. I'm doing that. If I need a helo, I call the comm center. Boom, give me a helo. We got to need a helo. We need, we need a medevac. We need this. We need that. Whatever we need. That's what SPI felt like to me. They didn't get in my way. They don't get in my way. They're just there when I need a helo. They're just there as my operations center when I need that helo. When I need to run a name, when I need to do this. And that was the best for me. It was the most comfortable thing. Now, okay, I can bring on, let's say I now hire somebody. I can now hire somebody. I've already got the platform for the TMS. I've already got the platform for them doing things. Like, it was an easy exchange there in a time that I had to pivot. And we all, like I said, I've had the same customer for 17 years.
Yeah.
That same customer slowed down. Whoa, what the hell happened? For a long period of time. They're still slow now because of, the economy we're in. And I had to make a pivot, and I had to make a pivot quick. And I think that's one of the things that, as a business owner, you have to be able to know where your pivot is if you have to one.
And dude, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and that to me, though, Sage, is that, like, this is the stuff that individuals don't talk about out there on social media and stuff like that. Because again, they, like we were saying earlier, man, they only want to talk the highlight reels of stuff. Like, I know a lot of guys, man, who are top tier operators, right? That they're out there doing their thing, man. And when you're out there and you don't have investor capital, because I think, like, there's just like this big false sense of what it actually is, because, like, you see all these capital raises out there all the time, like, oh, this company raised 30 million or 100, and you think like everybody just has access to it, or you think because you started a business, you must be successful, right? Yes and no, right? Like, there's a lot of decisions and situations that you find yourself in where you're like, man, is it worth it anymore? Like, is this what I actually want to do? Because, like, having to pivot, that's part of it, man. Like, kudos to you for cutting. The best way that I can think of to describe this, Stage, is cutting bait and making that pivot and not wallowing in it and going back down. So it's like, when you're bringing that up, Sage, are you glad 2008 happened? Do you feel like that better prepared you for that next situation where you're like, no, we got to do it? Were you able to recognize it sooner, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I knew you could seeing what was going on, seeing the numbers. And that's a big thing when it comes to business. You got to be able to understand, if you're in logistics, you better know logistics. You know, and once you go from driving that truck to owning your business, you're now in logistics. You're not a truck driver anymore. Now, you might be still driving that truck, but you're trying to build a logistics business, right? Yeah. So for me, once I saw the logistics of it, I'm like, okay, we're going to have an issue here. Things are slowing down here. I know what I ship. I know the type of freight I ship. I know the type why my freight moves when it moves. I do fiberglass tanks. I do water treatment plants. I do carbon capture. This is, technically green energy type stuff with carbon capture, and we're just going to slow down on that. I do oil field. So I'm looking at the oil field prices, and I know that people say drill, baby, drill, but I'm looking at the price of oil, and I talk to oil people, and I'm like, okay, they don't turn a profit until they get to $70 or more. We're at 64. They're not going to be drilling. Okay, problem. I'm not going to be shipping. So it was realizing my business and understanding how my business works outside of me, like oil fields, because I ship oil fields. So I need to know how oil field works. That I was able to make the pivot and just say, look, I'm going to get my insurance test. I'm going to pass my insurance test. I'm going to help truck, do that, and then still run the agency, still run the podcast and the show I do. But yeah, if you can't listen to somebody else tell you stories like this, it's very difficult to realize, because you hang on way too long. Way too long. You want to hang on to it, right?
Yeah.
So this time I knew, don't hang on, pivot, start over. Doesn't matter. Pivot, start over, move. And I think a lot of truck drivers and a lot of people in the industry, they get in and they don't know. And then all of a sudden, when the crap hits the fan, they don't say shit, Sage. I'm used to trying to stay. I don't want to get anybody else in trouble. I'm used to just talking this way. So I don't know if they don't know how to pivot, or they don't realize that, oh, darn, you know what I mean? And I think that's a big portion. I mean, let me ask you, correct.
Yeah.
How did you get into open deck and OD? Because I know you do that also to an aspect.
I got into open deck and OD because, like, I had done food and beverage for the first 7 years of my career, high volume, every Kroger, Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco delivery style out there, man. It was a lot of repeatable freight. It was all 26 pallets, all 43,000 pounds, the same stuff day in and day out, right? And it was fun for a while, and then I got bored, right? And I'm like, man, I want to go try something new. I want to try open deck, because I've never done open deck at a high level. And that is why I went and did that, right? But now I look at it as I know that if push came to shove, I could develop business inside of food and beverage all over again, because that hasn't changed. The fundamentals are there, right? So I was building a skill set, but
Mhm.
I would never advocate and I talk about this often, man. I would never advocate for anybody to go into logistics that's never built a book of business before to
Yeah.
just try and do anything and everything. I always tell them, choose one thing and become undeniably better than anybody at that.
Right.
But that's ultimately why, man, I wanted to try something new. I wanted to become more well-rounded as a broker and understand it. I mean, dude, it was such an education right away, man. Like, I got so lucky that, shout out to a lot of those OD drivers that tolerated me early on
Mhm.
and like kind of walked me through and educated. But those guys are why I stuck with it, because they took their time. They're like, hey, man, we need this information, and this information. If I'm going to be able to do that, does this
Yeah.
do that? And I'm like, hold on, let me go find out. But, again, man, it was an education piece, but I had the humility to always say, I don't know, let me find out. I
Yeah.
never tried to play it off that I had it all figured out, because, unlike some people, man, my mistakes cost me money early on in my career. And I learned at that time, all right, I'm done bullshitting. I'm done lying.
Yeah, it don't work well.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, because that's another aspect that people that you just said right there. When you come in, people think, I'm going to do everything and I'll make so much money, and they end up making no money because they don't know the master of nothing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Man.
and that's where I did. I drove tractor trailer, I drove van, I drove flatbed, and when we started brokering freight, I knew guys that had overdimensional stuff, and I just said, that's the route we're going. We're going that route. I'm going to do that. I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to learn everything about that, and that's what we're going to do. And I got to the point, like I said, that I had a website. I took the website down. I was getting so many calls, because I was getting calls when other people were like, hey, yeah, this my freight's sitting in a scale house. We can't get it out. They say that this. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I got a little black book of state permit people. My black book's not women. It's a little black book of state permit people. I can call Ohio and talk to them. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio is, and Kentucky, I can talk to them and call them like, hey, it's Sage. And, oh my God, what are you moving now? Most of the time I'm moving something that needs route surveys and permissions, and then it has to go through engineering and they have to approve it, and it's a super load, and or they might say, nope, you're gonna have to barge that one, and then I have to talk, explain this stuff. So this is the pivots that I think that saves people, is when they niche that out. And then, like I said, I think a lot of times we have carriers that I just wish, once they came in and started driving truck, they would say, okay, now I need to know more. I mean, I talk to carriers all the time, and they're like, well, how do I get the best load? How do I go negotiate the best thing? And I said, you want to get on here we go. The load board is what I call the minimum wage job opportunity board. It's nothing more than a sign in a window. You're walking by and it says help wanted, and you go in. They don't know you. You don't know them. They're going to start you out at minimum wage or whatever the minimum thing is, until you basically establish yourself that you're good at what you do.
Yes.
So I used to tell drivers, I said, you want to prove that you want to get better rates? Don't sell to me. Don't worry about your problems. Solve my problem. What is my problem as a freight broker? If you can come in and solve my problem, you're going to get my call every time. Babysit me. What is your price to babysit me? I don't want to babysit you. You're going to babysit me, and you're going to solve my problems. And I tell them, how do you solve my problems? Well, my problems is communication is constantly a problem for freight brokers. Basically not checking in and confirming situations if they've changed. Hey, just give me a call. I'm the one paying you. Just give me a call. Let me know what's going on, and and then that, showing up on time and pick up a delivery, giving me an ETA if your ETA changes. These are the problems I have with everybody else. If you're not that guy, I'm going to remember you.
Yes.
And you're going to get a call.
I will 100% agree with you on the stance that all of my best freight goes to my core carriers first. The only time my freight makes it out to a load board is when my core carriers are not available to pick up. Like tough freight, like we move out of Denver like multiple times a day, every day of the week. and the majority of that freight never makes it to a load board. Denver's one of the loosest markets that are out there.
Absolutely.
But dude, we have 5 carriers that we reach out to first before we even touch a load board, right? And they take like 70% of it, right? If they're there, man, they take it, boom, and we don't even think twice about it, and they get the best paying load out there. We probably overpay them, I would say, more times than not. And I do that because like I know what comes with the service that they provide. They give us the photos, the communication, they do all that stuff. So for me, there's no haggle, right? There's no prove it. And I feel like I wish more brokers, though, Sage, would take the steps of building these relationships with drivers, because I'm going to push back in the sense that I think more drivers would if the brokers took the initiative to do what you're talking about right there. Because I know a lot of brokers, Sage, who are like, hey, we paid $1,500 on it this week. Now let's get it for $1,400 next week. And they're just constantly about trying to push down that price. And they don't want to invest in a relationship with the driver until the market shifts and there's no trucks, and now all of a sudden they're crying about relationships, right? But so it's a two-way street out there. But I understand what you're saying. You know, it's like I look at it where at least for inside of my team, anytime a drive, like if it's the first time we've worked with somebody, as soon as that load delivered, if they did that great job, I'm asking them, hey, are you guys running this lane often? What's all the equipment you guys have? What are all the lanes that you like to run? Let us know when you're in these areas. We ship out of this city, and this city multiple times a week. Stay in contact with us. So we take that proactive approach, right? And I wish more people would do that. And I think most individuals as business owners, Sage, they have to understand that it is solely on their shoulders to get as much business as possible, and no one's going to come and do it for them.
Right. I haven't had before SPI, because SPI hooks us up with a load board. I never had a load board in 8 years before that.
Oh, dang.
8 years I didn't use a load board. I didn't have to use a load board. I've got this Rolodex. I've got a text, and I'll shoot them a text. I'll get a load and I'll be like, all right, I got to find all my hotshot guys. I go down and I start tagging my hotshot guys. Where you at? Where you at? Or my OD guys. Where you at? Where you at? I got a load. Here's the dims. Here's what we got. Here's where we're going. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, I'm at a point now where I can quote my carrier's freight, and they're just like, yeah, quote it for me. All right.
Yeah.
And it works. And because I know their numbers, I know what it's going to cost. I know how many escorts we're going to need. I know where we're going to need this. I throw the price on there. I call them up like, yeah, we're at this. She's like, yeah, all right, I'll be there Tuesday. But I don't want to use a load board. And so that's a problem for me. So the biggest thing is solving my problems is, even, like I said, I have had new carriers show up. Boom, I'm on site. Take a picture of the front of the building for me. I'm like, this is a building. I'm like, that's the building. Go ahead and go in.
Yeah.
Joking around, and then they start load. They send me pictures of the load. They take a picture of the bill of lading before they leave. Hey, is this right? Yep, that's right. Okay, I got the same. I've got the bill of lading, not the POD, but the bill of lading, because it turns into the POD, in my hand before they leave.
Yep.
All right. I give the phone number to the customer, to the carrier of the customer for the delivery. I'm like, you got to call. Boom. I've already called. I told him I'll be there Wednesday about noonish. I spoke to Chris. I'm getting these. These are the drivers that solve my problems. And I pay them for that. I pay them to babysit me. I want my binky. I want my bottle. I want my banky. And you're going to pay. I'm going to pay you for that. But if I got to start babysitting you, then you lose money, because you're bringing me less value. You're bringing me, so that's how I treat my drivers. And I've kept the same drivers for, like I said, I told you earlier, I said one of my longest ones is 12 years I've been with the same carrier. I'm calling, that's my first go-to. There's no one, so I think a big portion this is how the business works behind the scenes, behind the curtain for drivers. And they've got to learn how to get behind the curtain. And it takes time, it takes work, and it takes, your marketing. You're the sales and marketing team of your company. And the sales and the marketing is how you perform while under my load. What do you do for me? What do you bring me?
No, man. I mean, it is, man. You got to take that, and you got to go above and beyond. You just have to find a way to stand out. And, so I mean, speaking of that, man, like you've been around the industry for a long time. What are you thinking for the rest of 25 into 26? Is what we're going through now going to continue? What are your thoughts on that? Because I personally think that it's people should be more prepared for it remaining this way for the foreseeable future than anticipating anything's going to shift anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree with you. So it's all kind of based on I agree with you. It's going to be slower. That's recorded with what we're seeing now. We collect a lot of data, and that's a huge thing too. Like as a truck driver, you want to have some type of office type system to collect all of your data. I should be able to ask you, hey, how long you been running? 5 years. Okay, 2 years ago this week, what were you hauling? You should be able to pull this information. So because we pull this information. We get everything. So what we're seeing now from freight, I think tariffs play a big role in this. Tariffs play a huge role. They did in 2018. This is some of the stuff I talk about on my show. They did in 2018. We had a freight recession in the beginning of 2019. The purpose of the tariff is to basically stop you from buying goods. So when we stop you from buying goods, we lower the freight volumes coming in, right? Also, I explain this to people too, is when things ship from when things ship from China to the United States, we offload those and we stick them in trucks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't drive from China to the United States. People probably have tried, but you can't do it. So there's a lot more freight moving from west to east. When Canada and Mexico become our top trading partners, you can drive from both of those. And there's rail from both of those, and it's easier to rail and stuff. So you lose some of that volume also. But I think in 2025, until there's no more chaos in the market, right? My investors, I had this conversation because I asked my customers, what's going on, man? Why is it so, what's going on with it's being slow? I have 40, not shipping, but actual product. There is $40 million worth of product, tanks, fiberglass tanks and everything, either sitting on POs, sitting on the ground, or sitting in production, basically ready, that could be started, that is on hold because investors and the people that are buying that product to move that product to build what they were going to build, there's no structure in the market. There's no consistency in the economy. There's chaos, and they don't like chaos. So until we get the economy basically stabilizes, we're going to be seeing this till the end of the year. Yeah. It's just what it is, because the big money people don't like chaos. They like consistency, because you build business with consistency. You build a business with consistency. You can have to sometimes grab some chaos and do some risk, but you grab risk when you got a baseline, right? Once you got a baseline, you're like, all right, I'm going to take a little risk here. You did it. You had a baseline of what? Beverages. Baseline. All right, I want to try to do this. Boom, I got it. And you were able to, now you pivoted and jumped into that field. But that's what builds your business and gives you that opportunity. And right now in the economy, we're just not seeing the numbers. I'm not seeing the attitude towards stability. And I'm not going to get political here, because you want to be political, I can be political on my show. But in regards to the numbers, I'm just not seeing the stabilizing economy for it start to go again, if that makes sense.
No, it does, man. And that's where I'm at with it as well, man, where we need a little bit of that in there. And I think until then, man, people need to kind of figure it out with the fact that like this might be the way that it's going to be for the foreseeable future. And you got to find a way to win, man, because winners win. But Sage, I appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for joining us. How does anybody reach out to you to find out more about what you got going on, check out your show or anything like that?
Yeah, you can put stuff in my prison fund. No, I'm just kidding. You can actually find me on Sage Outcast. It's at Sage Outcast X on YouTube. That's where I do my call-in show. We talk debate. I do stuff like that. So that's kind of a fun show. And then also at the bottom, I do Freight X Network. But and then, like I said, you can reach out to me for insurance quotes. I'm a licensed insurance agent for commercial trucking. Nothing to do with the SPI. That's my own thing. But besides that, that's kind of where you find me, to be honest. Perfect. And here on Freight Coach, because I've got some ideas that we might be doing more shows together. I have an idea, and I'm going to run it by you after the show's over. I'm already pivoting. He's already pivoting, ladies and gentlemen. Well, hey, Sage, I appreciate it, man. That is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. If you're feeling really ambitious after this one, which you should be, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you saw value, your network's going to see value as well.
I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm get to the back. Ayy, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving